Thank you. Please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Speakers that will be videoed. Just a reminder to everybody, this will be the first board meeting where we actually are utilizing our video system, where we'll be taping meetings, and then they will subsequently be able to be viewed on our website and a couple other locations. I bring that to your attention just so that if you're speaking to the board tonight, use your outside voice, because we're still adjusting microphones and so on. We'd appreciate if we could hear it so that when the people view it on the televisions or their computers, they'd be able to see it. And so you will be on video. Just wanted you to know that. Okay.
Thank you. Item 3 on the agenda is community comment. Per board policy, we allow up to 15 minutes of resident comment. Would anyone like to make a comment? Hearing none, we'll move on to item number 4, approval of the agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion by Mr. Nielsen. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Trailer. Any discussion?
Can I add on, just for future agenda items under item 10, that the December 12th meeting will also have the presentation of the Friends of Franklin Public Schools nominations and recognition?
I don't hear any objection to that. Sure. Thank you. All those in favor of approval of the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Item 5 is consent agenda. Are there any board members who would like to remove an item from the consent agenda?
Check register, please.
Okay, we'll be removing item D, check register. Any other items? Hearing none, then do I hear a motion?
I'm sorry, one more, the gifts.
And item C, gifts. Anything else? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to approve consent agenda items A through A and B?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Nielsen. Is there a second?
Second?
Second by Mrs. Klein. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Next item would be then item C on the consent agenda, gifts.
Yes, the reason I separate that, I just wanted to ask, the one item was a $10,000 donation for the communications device, and I appreciate the additional information that was provided. And I did review our donation policy, and that does reach the threshold of possibly recognizing them in a special way. I was wondering if there any consideration for doing that.
We have, but it's a private family donation, and at this time they have not indicated that they wanted to make it any more public, but we have brought that to their attention. They were going to let us know.
Okay, thank you.
And just so everybody knows what that Dynavox is, so we have those in several of our elementary classrooms, and they really enhance, actually, you can probably hear what it's like in this room right now with our microphones. It enhances the speaker, the teacher, in the classroom, and it really makes a difference in terms of the kids being able to hear when a teacher is talking, whether they're on a close-up range or a distance away from it. So it's a magnifying or an amplification system for a classroom.
Do I hear a motion to approve consent agenda item C, gifts?
I'll make that motion.
make that motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mrs. Larson, second by Mr. Trailer. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving consent agenda item C, gifts, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Item D, check register.
Yes, the reason I separate that is because I would like the board members and administration to consider revising the review of this check register. I feel that this review is really an outdated practice that does not serve us well, either the administration or the board. And I would ask that somehow we find a way to make a change in that. I did check with Mr. Milzer, and he's in agreement that this is probably not serving us well, And I think that the holdback is that we don't know what to replace it with, but somebody must have some ideas. Perhaps we can ask our auditors what they might suggest. Maybe they can review other entities, other government entities, what they might use. But I don't feel this is serving us well, and I just don't want to continue this. So I would urge us to consider directing someone to make a change.
Now, why don't we make a motion on the check register and then see if there's a discussion? Is that okay?
That's fine.
Okay, we have a motion to approve item D, check register.
Second.
No, do we have a motion?
Oh, do we have, I
Yeah.
thought she made the motion, sorry.
I'll make a motion to approve it, and you can second.
Sorry.
Motion by Mrs. Witkowski,
Second.
second by Mr. Nielsen. Is there discussion?
Do you want to expound a little bit on your conversation with Mr. Milzer, maybe?
Well, I just asked if he thought me asking him a question about a specific check really added to any value, and I didn't feel it did, and it was a short, very short conversation, and we really didn't talk about what we might do to replace it, but he was in agreement that perhaps this check register and picking out questions was not really a good use of anybody's time.
So instead of a check register, would you rather look at an idea of maybe a threshold?
We already have that.
Well, we have a threshold on the check register, so instead of approving a check register, approving, having you come to the board, if we just have an item, a higher item.
Well, we had talked about this for about 3 years, and at one point, we were just going to eliminate it, and then we were going to bring it back, and the board had taken different positions on it and so on. I guess the bottom line question would be, what, in your case, Linda, what are you looking for? What is the rest of the board looking for? Because in essence, everything that's on the check register has already been budgeted. So then it's our responsibility to exercise the budget and be responsible for the budget. So if there are, to your point, if you would like us to bring, that $50,000 threshold is what's out there right now. And at one time, we talked about bringing that before the board, or at least acknowledging to the board that that was out there, and it would take care of a lot of this. And it has no value to us because we look at it from the standpoint that it's a budgeted item. So we manage that, that's what we do. And if it involves an expenditure for a project, that's carried through in the maintenance report or facilities or whatever it might be, or curriculum possibly if it's a larger expenditure. So I guess it would be helpful for us to know that as a board, how relevant and how important is any of it, because you can have access to it anytime you want it to walk in and do it. But it's, I've not been anywhere that did anything a whole lot different than this, other than Mrs. Evans's point to say that, well, if you have those bigger items, bring them to us. But again, that's usually brought to you in different forms, either through like a maintenance budget or curriculum or technology or whatever it might be. So we would be open to ideas, I guess.
Right, I think the point was that Mrs. Witkowski brought up is that they really don't know. As a board, you really don't know about each specific expenditure. You know about the budget in total, you know what we're trying to achieve, you know some of the initiatives that are going on. You can certainly identify health insurance and so forth on there, and you know about those things. But many of them you don't, and if you're being asked to approve it, it just puts you in a position of approving things that you don't know about. So as we go forward, if that's the feeling of more of you, I think the question to me was, do we have to do this? Some auditors would recommend that you do it, some wouldn't. I looked in the statutes, there isn't anything that says that you absolutely have to do it. And from my perspective, I wouldn't try and replace it with anything. I would either keep it or do away with it, I guess. Or have maybe that we had talked at one point, have the treasurer look at it anytime they want, or sit down and become more familiar with it, that kind of thing, so that the board has a representative that's in tune with it, but not necessarily the whole board has to get involved every time. So just a couple of ideas I'd throw out. I don't know as we need to make a decision tonight. I could work with Mrs. Klein on it as well if you'd like.
I'd just be curious to know if you have an idea, Mrs. Witkowski. I mean, isn't this your forte, your profession at some point?
Yes,
I'm
I
just
do.
wondering
I'm
if
involved
you have
in
an idea, because I don't. but I'm just wondering if you do.
Well, I am involved in preparing financial reports that are shared with county board committees, and one suggestion would be to do some kind of a monitoring report. You need to provide some context, expenditures relative to budget. I know we have such a report, however, I think it needs some improvement. And that maybe I understand the time involved, because yes, it takes us time to do this. Maybe we can do it quarterly rather than monthly. That would address some of that. But I think, I don't want to give up the fiscal oversight that I think this represents. So maybe we do need to not solve this tonight, but come back with a recommendation. But if you would like me to suggest things, I'm willing, but I sense that I want administration to have the opportunity first to present their ideas.
Would you be receptive to Mr. Miller's recommendation that the clerk come in and review them, and then that'd be the person with the oversight, and if there's ever a question, that person can bring before the board that the fact that the check registry was reviewed and found everything to be in line, or if she has some questions or he has some questions in terms of a larger expenditure, because just about everything that's in here are what I would signify as smaller dollar amounts, meaning under the $50,000 threshold. But those bigger items are things that are just sort of mandatory, or there are health insurance premiums, there are premiums to cease or whatever it might be, so they're standard. And so I guess my question was, would the board clerk having the oversight be acceptable to you?
Well, one thing I've noticed that we're running more and more purchases through our P card, our credit card. So the clerk or the treasurer would even have access to who those payments were made to. So if you're asking me personally, I would not find that adequate.
Mr. Milzer, do you generate this report specifically for us in the format that it's in?
Yes.
I mean, honestly, I believe that the way it currently is presented to us, it's like we've paved the cow path. It's something that's, you've had, I'm sure boards have reviewed those, probably the last 50 years. But, this is 21st century. We need to kind of step it up here.
Well, and I guess we would look at it as, part of our responsibility is for the board to have trust in us to monitor these kinds of things. And, at one time, we even asked, I think a legitimate question would be, is the rest of the board interested in changing anything? Because that would help us to know if we have a particular issue that we can help address with Linda, or if this is not an issue of the full board, then that gives us another direction to go. Or if the direction would be to have the clerk do it, or...
What part of the report don't you like?
Of the check register?
Yeah, the check register.
It doesn't provide any context. It doesn't provide any information that I have to make any kind of evaluation of what.
So you need to know, like, what the bill for Apple computer was?
I don't want to get into the details of how we might tweak this report. I don't think this.
No, I'm just
is
trying to find out
appropriate.
what you don't like of it.
I don't think it adds any value to our oversight role.
Do you think it's too vague?
I
Like you
think
want more
it
of a
doesn't
description of
provide,
what things are?
that might be helpful, but I would appreciate more of a context of, how it compares to major budget expenditures. For example, we have a budget for purchasing, I want to say books, even though we don't buy books, but we have that area. Do we buy all the equipment we planned for? Do we buy all the books we planned for? Are we saving money in utilities? I think this can be a positive thing. I don't want it to be as, negative, because I think we do a great job of monitoring our expenditures, and we don't give ourselves credit for that. We could structure this so that that would also be a positive.
I think to dilute it anymore, go ahead, Tim.
I was just going to say, what I'm hearing more is almost like a variance report from
Correct.
expenses to budget, without getting too far in the weeds on the kind of detail you'd have to provide. If it's system generated and it wouldn't require a whole lot more, maybe that's the type of information you're looking for.
Correct.
I think to get in deeper, quite honestly, gets into micromanaging the budget, and the board has already approved the budget. It's been approved by the community and so on. So when you have an item, for example, under here, teachers on call, this board is well aware that what teachers on call is. They know, in that we wouldn't be able to give you on a monthly basis a budget to expenditure ratio until we get to the end of the year in terms of savings, and same with the utilities, and so, you know, we wouldn't be able to tell you, well, we saved 10% on utilities. We don't know that till the end of the year, and that's where the annual meeting report comes in, where we, you know, take care of those categories and express those budget amounts and whether they're over or under budget.
And the monthly treasurer's report does show where we are if we take the budget as approved, and then each of those areas, we show how much we've spent, which percentage that is, what the budget is for those areas. So you are getting that every month as well.
Well, I think maybe this was a good first step in talking about it, about if there's any changes that we want to implement. One of the things that's always, when I first got on the board, is we're approving checks that have already been written. So I don't know if it was a procedural thing that just needed to be done, the board approved the check register, because there's nothing we're going to be able to do about it. And I agree with Steve, there's a budget set, there's parameters that are set, and we don't want to get that far into it anyway,
Right,
so.
right.
Would it be acceptable for Melissa as the clerk and Jim and I to sit down and come up with at least some talking points to generate something? Would you like that for a start, or would you like something else?
Yeah, put it in as a discussion item. Opposed to what we're
Do
doing
whatever-
now. Technically, we're
whatever
not.
wishes of the board are.
Yeah.
Yeah, which may lead to no changes, or some changes, or,
Okay.
I'd be okay with that.
Melissa is treasurer, not clerk.
I'm sorry.
That's okay, just to get it right. Okay,
Can we put that as a future agenda item then?
sure.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion by Mrs. Witkowski, second by Mr. Nielsen to approve consent agenda item D, check register. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the check register, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. Item 6, school board announcements. Does any board member have an announcement?
The only announcement I have is there's the Zoomathon on Saturday, 5 o'clock at the high school to benefit the Education Foundation. It's $15 for 2 hours. And then there's an after, well, they guarantee 1,000 calories burned, so then you go to Mulligan's afterwards to replace that. And they have specials and such for those who,
We need to do that.
so.
I
that's
attended this
Saturday.
morning the Barb Schneider retirement party at Robinwood. So we were there for 9 years, and so she was secretary there, so that went well. And we got to I was introduced to the new Barb, Deb, I believe it is. And so that was fun.
Deb might be familiar to you. She was our front desk person
Yeah,
here.
she said that she worked here for a little bit, yeah.
Any other announcements?
Yeah, there is a fashion show at the high school tomorrow night that's being put on by the students. It's, I think, at 7 o'clock in the multipurpose room. if anybody's
It's also
interested.
at 12 o'clock.
Oh, they're doing it during the day also?
There's a noon one and a
Oh, hadn't heard about that. Great.
Anything else? I have one, it's a little less happy. State Superintendent Tony Evers, on his DPI Connected newsletter, he announced that the more than 1 out of every 14 Wisconsin high school students has tried to kill themselves at least once. And that's according to the most recent data from the 2011 Youth Risk Behavior Survey. And on December 11th, there's going to be an episode of Teen Connection airing at 7 o'clock p.m. on the Wisconsin Public Television and Channel 10 in Milwaukee. And there will be a student and adult panel on the issue, and they're going to encourage students to call and talk about that on the show. And I just thought that was important to bring that up because Suicide Prevention Month is coming up, and I thought somebody might be interested in tuning into that. So, the next item is the school board calendar, and we have regular board meeting on Wednesday, December 12th at 6 o'clock p.m. here at the Education and Community Center, and then a regular Board of Education meeting January 9th, 6 o'clock p.m. at Pleasant View Elementary. Item 8 is reports and presentations, and we have technical education update Franklin Dugout Project And we have Dr. Zelmer.
Yep, thank you very much, Mrs. Evans. For those in the audience who don't know, I'm Mike Zelmer. I work here in instructional services in this building with Wendy, and we're going to start with a video in a few minutes, and so we're preparing for that if you want to get yourself in position. And just like to say we're pretty excited about bringing forward this presentation tonight about the Little League dugout construction project. I've worked with the teachers in career and tech ed, and Derek Zabel and Brian Debelak have been the teachers who have spearheaded this initiative, and it's kind of remarkable the number of partners that are involved. We'll take a look at the video. Here's our sequence of events. We'll take a look at the video first, which tells a story, and then we'd like to have each of the partners self-introduce, and I'll give you a basic question to answer. There's a microphone that we can pass along because, as you heard Dr. Pat say before, we're using our whole system here tonight, and we need to have the sound. And then we'll go to a Q&A from the board. You can ask about the project, and this is something that, a little background on this, when we brought partners forward at a previous board meeting, Marty Abramson was there from Lowe's and some other partners. There was a great interest on the part of the board to bring other partnerships forward, and Tim Nielsen was spearheading that and said, let's do something, let's bring some other folks forward. And so this is the first next in what we hope will be a little series to bring to the board. So with that, we'll run the video. Is that warmed up, Jim?
Yeah.
And we're ready to go.
Franklin Boy Scout fundraising, $600. Matching donation from the Franklin Little League Board, $600. Boy Scout Kellen Potter, planning for this Eagle Scout project, over 70 hours. Planning and execution by Tom Guile, Little League Board member, over 30 hours. Donation from Lowe's of Franklin, $1,200. Time donated by Lowe's employees for construction, over 90+ hours. Management of the project by Martin Abramson and Ruth Gonski of Lowe's, 60 hours. Time for Franklin Building Inspector Fred Baumgart to push permits through and waive fees, 2 hours. Time donated by Alderman Ken Skromsky when dealing with the city and the state, 2 hours. Time donated by city engineer Ron Romas to check the design and get state approval, 2 hours. Donation by Franklin High School for the site sign, $200. Time in meetings and coordinating media coverage, Mike Zelmer, Director of Assessment and Learning, 10 hours. Production of videos by Gail DeClark, video production teacher, 10 hours. Taping and editing for the Sabre Roar student newscast by Franklin High School student Derek Huff, 5 hours. Prepping and attending meetings as well as designing and building the site sign by Derek Zabel, tech ed teacher, 50 hours. Coordinating the business partners, community involvement, and students by Brian Debelak, constructions teacher, 100 hours. 14 FHS construction students donating time working outside of school, over 350 hours. Long-lasting benefits to Franklin High School students and the community. Priceless.
thanks to Gail DeClark and her students for great job on that video. Most of our partners and people involved are sitting right here in the front row. And I think this is on and working. And so we're going to start right here. I'm just going to ask you to self-introduce, say who you are from the Little League, and answer the question as a partner, why were you interested in partnering with the Franklin Public School students in their schoolwork?
All right, well, I'll go first, I guess, here. Brian could, but I'm Tom Guile. I'm with Franklin Little League. I have been a board member for 10 years in the league. I was the president when Brian came to us with a project idea, so, and then the question was?
Why were you interested in partnering?
Well, I mean, it's an obvious fit for Franklin Little League to connect with Franklin High School. I don't know. I talked to some of the kids when they were up there, and I always call them kids. They could be 18. I call my students at MATC kids too sometimes. But most of them have some experience with Franklin Little League. Maybe it was just T-ball, and then they decided soccer was going to be their thing or something. But many of them, at least at one point, played in Franklin Little League. And so it's a great thing to have those guys come back and actually see that there's more to Franklin Little League than showing up on Saturday morning to play a game at 9 o'clock and then eat ice cream at the concession stand and leave. I mean, there's grass cutting, there's the fields, there's the dugouts that have to get built and fixed when things go wrong. So I mean, it was a great fit there for us to get the kids involved on a different aspect of it.
Okay, thank you very much. You mind passing that to Keelan? And then Keelan, as a student, the question is a little bit different for students. What did you learn from the Little League Dugout project?
Well, I wasn't really a student on the project. I was the Boy Scout doing the Eagle Project aspect of it. So, I mean, I skipped the introduction. I'm Callum Potter. I'm the Boy Scout from the Franklin Boy Scouts. So, I mean, I learned a lot about management, like overseeing all sorts of people. I had to communicate with Marty and Tom and Mr. Debelak. It was, I mean, I learned a whole lot about managing things and time constraints and budgeting and fundraising, especially. That was a big part of it as well. So I learned a whole lot.
Great, thank you.
Marty Abramson, store manager of Lowe's of Franklin. So Brian came to me quite a while ago, really, and just said, hey, we want to get together and start working on stuff. And it really started with going to the school and getting involved with students, because the big problem that they found was, there's a lot of kids out there that can use computers, they can do things technology-wise, but as far as hands-on, you're just not, they just don't learn it so much. So everybody comes out of school, and if, a lot of kids don't go to college, they don't, when they get out of college, it's not like they go jump behind a desk and they start programming or, designing and stuff. So for us, it was really a good fit because the students get a lot of hands-on experience. We can work with them. They can do budgeting with, whatever we're using, wood or whatever products we're trying to do, and they can try to design it, at the school. They can try to build it, help with us. We brought some guys out, and we have a lot of, I won't say 100% expertise in, what everybody's doing, but, we got a lot of experience in the store. So we're just trying to team up, and it's a continuing thing. So we started this, and this is one project. Ruth, the HR manager who couldn't make it tonight, has been to the school already and tried to discuss like HR things, like resumes and just how to interview and, those kind of things. So we're just looking forward to continuing it, because our goal, I've been here for just under 2 years. So my goal, I guess, for the store is just to get involved with the community and how can we pay back a little bit for everything that we get, and vice versa. So that's what we're trying to do.
Thank you, Brian. I got a call to come to the counter and met Brian for the first time. My name is Ron Romois. I work for for the city of Franklin Engineering Department. I'm a civil engineer, worked for the city for about 13 years now. So Brian's at the counter and, sort of panicking, but, so he enlisted me into this project, and it didn't take long to realize that he had thought it out really well. You know, he had a lot of plans, but we did some real brainstorming on, you know, some concerns, you know, that I would have, and kind of worked with him on working through the project, and, you know, it was a good relationship. So I really appreciated it, and good working relationship between the city and the school districts. Thank you.
I'm Derek Zabel. I'm the other teacher that was involved with the project from Franklin High School. I think for me, oftentimes working with the students in the school, they don't really get a picture of just how big the world is and how much different the projects are outside of our classroom. So for me, experiences like this are incredibly important because they get that real world feel. It's not, this is my classroom, I go here every day. No, the classroom, we moved and expanded the classroom and made the classroom the world, which I think is incredibly valuable in expanding their skills and moving them forward and giving them new experiences. So.
I'm Gilda Clark. I teach video production. I just got the fun part of telling the story. And so we brainstormed some ideas and came up with a way to tell the story. And luckily I had a lot of great footage because my student, Derek Huff, went out and shot it for the news, our news cast that we always do. And he shot a lot of good footage, so I had a lot to work with. And there's Derek.
Hi, I'm Derek Huff. I'm on the Saper Roar at the high school, and I had the privilege of getting the news story for the dugouts. And I just had to go to the building site, get a lot of information and footage on how it all came together, and still working on the story. Gonna edit it more.
I'm Mike Nowak, principal at the high school. It's just really neat to see so many people from the community here. Our students had a great experience, and you know, they can see their work every day for quite a few years to come. We appreciate it.
Back row here. I'm Ken Skoronsky. I'm an alderman. Always look forward to working with the school board, your members, students, our city assistant engineer. It's good to do these projects because life skills for these students are very important. You can work with your mind, but you can work with your hands also. So it's a pleasure. I've worked with not only the construction department or the skills department. Pleasure working with the band at the Labor Day Fair, and I look forward to doing it more. And if there's anything I can do, I always try and make sure it gets done expedient so you can get things accomplished. Again, thank you.
Hi, my name is Brian Deblick. I'm going to just turn this down because I am loud, period. So the kids really don't need the vocalization that we have in the computers, or for my voice to be challenged. You hear me loud and clear on the job site. Just to let you guys know, this is sort of a dream that we've all had. I know the tech ed and the people that are around here. I really want to appreciate all the people that are here and came together for one goal, and that was for the kids. And that's truly what we're here for. Life lessons are learned through experience, and that's what learning is all about. It's learning through making mistakes. The next 4 people that I had here were basically foremen for the jobs. They were dealing with the inspectors on the job. I basically let them flounder. And they had to talk with the inspector. If they didn't know, they'd have to go on and they'd have to communicate or come back and talk to me and ask me a question. Fred's not here. Fred was actually the inspector on the job. It was great with the kids. Walked around with them, explained the code issues. Nikki was one of the foremen, Worth, and Jake, and Mr. D'Amato. So I'm going to let them speak, and you guys make sure you ask them some real tough questions, please. Thanks a lot, Mr. Devlin.
Thanks, Mr. Devlin. I'm Brandon North. As stated, I was one of the foremen on the group. Basically, my task was just yell at the people, tell them what to do, and how to get things done. That's the simplicity of it, but I was basically just, given the task, get things done each day, make sure they're done on time. I tried to, get it done as best as I can, to my abilities, and if I couldn't, I would go ask, Mr. Devlin or anyone else who knew how to do it, and they would do it better. Because, obviously I'm not an expert at what we do. I'm just a student, and learning from this has been a good opportunity.
Can I ask a question? Can I? So hold on, Brandon. Go back, and I want to ask you something on it. What is the one thing that you came away with, and where are you going to school after this, and what are you looking at?
Well, before I didn't really know much about project management or, yelling at people or construction management. I mean, I'm not really the kind of guy to, just like, hey, do this now. But basically through learning this class, I've been accepted to UW Stout and UW Platteville for construction management and civil engineering. I'm still undecided where I want to go, but I also have looked at other schools outside of this state. But for, my career, I pretty much want to be a construction manager because of this class now.
I'm Jake Benning. Like Mr. DeBlack said, I was also a foreman. My duties were to talk to the inspector, make sure everything went as planned, make sure we did everything right. The best thing I would say that I took away from this class would be the fact that it was hands-on. There was like no in-class time. The in-class time was like safety, looking at blueprints, like just learning the basics, and then going outside of the class was the best part. Like, every single student that was in the class, that's their favorite part, is they're stuck in a classroom all day. The one thing that they want to do is like go out, hands-on, that kind of stuff. So that's really what I liked about the program, and yeah.
Jake, there was a particular incident that the inspector did something, that he said something to you about the footing holes, what you have to do and why did you have to do it?
With the footing holes, there was actually debris that was like leaves and other debris that was falling in there that you cannot have when the concrete is to set. And the rebar with it's supposed to be a third of the way up and a third of the way down when it's wired up, and it actually wasn't. It was a little bit off, so we had to rewire it and get the debris out before we poured any concrete.
Thanks, Jake.
Hello, I'm Nick D'Amato. I was one of the workers on the project. What I took away from this was lifelong skills that I'll use for the rest of my life, like roofing and siding. It's a class that I'll use for the rest of my life. Like some of the classes at the high school, it's great, but I probably won't use that in life, but this class, it does.
Hey, Nick, you get that A. You're good.
Yeah, after high school, I'd like to join the Coast Guard, and I'm planning to go into MATC for fire science.
Hello, my name is Nikki Tarowski. I was one of the foremen on this project, and one of the things there's actually many things that I took away from this project, and many skills. Not only learning how to, build something, but learning how to build relationships with different people as well. So with this, it was quite exciting being the only girl in this class for 2 years in a row. It's very rewarding in my perspective, in the sense that you have to learn to be tough to put up with other people. It's fun to yell at the boys, not gonna lie. And I live with my dad and my brother full time, so I have plenty argumentative experience with that. And then hopefully what I've come to learn, this class has made me learn how much I love being hands-on with stuff. I'm not the type of kid to sit in a classroom and, do math for an hour and a half or English for an hour and a half. I love being up and moving, and that's what gets me to focus and pay attention. So, and I've grown up with my brother always building forts, so it's just kind of building things and working hands-on. It's been fun. So I've applied to the University of Wisconsin Stout and North Dakota State University for construction management. And depending on which one I go to, with Stout I will do construction management, and then with North Dakota State I'll do construction management and construction engineering. Do a double major.
I want to tell you a little bit of story about Nikki. Again, she is a woman that is in a man's field, and just being realistic for what we're doing. Nikki has a very unique style. Words that we don't hear in the job normally are please and thank you. And what I learned from Nikki, and this is what I've learned from this, she goes please and thank you to those boys and they hop. So I've learned that lesson from Nikki, so I get just as much back as what I give to you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's great.
Hello, my name is Greg Rand, and I was a worker that was privileged to take part in this project as well. It was a very rewarding time in class, and like Jake had said, it was nice to get out of the classroom and be able to do hands-on and sort of give back to an organization, Little League, that I had participated in as a kid. And it was just stuff that I learned from the environment that really helped me become, more hands-on and stuff that I can apply later on in life with projects that I take on when I get my own house and stuff of that sort. Save me money, and just communication skills, learning how to take directions and stuff was something that I took out of it and really I'm working on to apply every day.
I guess I'll tell you a story. I gotta ask Greg a question in front of everybody. Greg, with a full wheelbarrow of concrete, can you jump a ditch? That's the question I want to know. Did you learn that lesson? No comment on that one.
Probably not. Depends.
All right, that's all the partners and everybody, Brian? Yes. Okay, are there questions that the board has for our guests?
I have a couple of questions. Mr. Potter, how did you decide to do this project?
At first, I brainstormed ideas even earlier than I had known about the dugout project. I had first brought forth with the middle school an opportunity to redo the trail by the middle school, which they didn't want to because it was maintenance costs and they'd have to do all the upkeep and things, which was reasonable. So I had asked one of the people who I don't know how to pronounce their name that was there at the meeting to just email me if they had found any other projects. And about a couple weeks or a month later, he had emailed me and told me to speak with Mr. Devilak, and that's really how I got started with the project. And from there, there's a lot already going on with the project. It was already like they were going to do it. So I really just jumped on and continued on with it.
What troop number are you?
539.
I just like that students, Boy Scouts, businesses, and community members, and the high school are all together. I think that's excellent. And the hands-on learning, and you, Nikki, that's awesome.
Thank you.
I'm glad I like a woman that isn't afraid of a little hard work. That shows really good character.
Yeah, I just want to say it's just a great partnership and collaboration. Same thing, it's great. And I'd like to know, are any of you going to go back and watch the Little League players and savor what you did?
It should be, probably go back and watch just the game to see if they notice, the new dugouts, and see if they comment on anything and say, oh, this is cool, oh, this is sturdy, and don't feel like I'm in a, shack that's gonna fall over, God forbid, if a, baseball.
Yeah, my little brother's gonna play baseball and catch a few balls.
Good job. Good
History repeats itself. Some of these people will move back to Franklin and have kids. And I have to believe with the age of the dugouts that were there, I mean, they've been there 15, 20 years. This one is going to last 15 or 20 years. So I'd venture to guess some of them are going to have kids in those dugouts playing. So we'll see.
It makes me feel just really proud of all you guys for not only what you've learned, but what you've given back to the community, and I have to commend you for that. Thank you.
I also want to thank Mrs. Clark for, being able to share the story. I think we can, because this is one project, but obviously we want to have more projects so that more kids can benefit, and telling the story, I think, is also important.
So the board is aware, and Brian and I spoke real briefly on this because it was early in the concept, but since our referendum has been successful, we're going to be integrating a lot of student involvement in our process quite a bit. They'll be working with construction managers to the extent that we can, of course, but I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for a lot of students to be able to get sort of involved in some of the things that you may not even expect, like construction meetings, and hear what goes on in those and to see some of the planning. So we really look forward to that. Matter of fact, our architects have sent us a complete curriculum if we wanted to do it, but we'll have to discuss that. But just so everybody's aware, we do want to involve our students in this process because they're part of our community and certainly part of who represents Franklin High School.
Aldrin?
I represent the National Association of the Remodeling Industry. We have two foundations, one in Milwaukee and one on a national level, and we do give scholarships for anybody involved in the construction skills. So you can apply if you're seniors, you want to go on. We support MATC, WCTC. We have endowments there, and we look forward to any of the students. Great to see women in construction. It was great. So please apply. I was similar about it, but those scholarships are not only 1 year, but they are 2-year scholarships. You do good the first year, you can go on for the second year. So I put the offer out there. Please apply. Thank you.
I'd like to thank Mr. Zelmer and Dr. Pats for getting this partnership project off the ground and having the first meeting. I know when I brought it to their attention, and it was something that we had done last year, I didn't really have any direction with it. It was something we just talked about doing, and I could not have asked for a better start with this. This meeting, you hit the home run, no pun intended, because I agree with the comments. Actually, there was a pun intended. But at any rate, to see that the community, the students, the board, the city, everybody, my business partners, everybody involved, that's great.
Thank you all again. You did a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
30 seconds. Oh, and people involved.
Yeah, I bet.
Good. I don't miss my brother.
That seems to be the thing in management.
I don't know how to yell at people.
Okay, our next item under reports and presentations is item B, Instructional Services Report, New Course Approvals. Dr. Dezurek?
Thank you. Well, that's a hard act to follow.
Yes.
I guess I do have the music department here. I did ask them if they would sing and dance, so they might consider that. Before I begin, we do have some music department members here tonight, and I would like to introduce them to all of you so that you know who's in the audience, because it's their great work that we'll be sharing tonight. We have Lindy Reinders, who's the coordinator for the K-12 music group. Raise your hand so they know who you are. We have Allison Umhofer, who is our band person at the high school, and the three people I'm introducing are all working at the high school. And we have TJ Hull, who works at the high school and the elementary. And new to our staff this year is Jamie Schlecht, and she is our choral person, and we're very excited to have her in Franklin. She's got a lot of enthusiasm around our choral program. So those are the people joining me this evening. As I shared in the report, I won't reread it to you, but as always, when we bring an area under review, we determine if the course offerings are adequate to meet the new curriculum that we'll put in place.
And we usually find that we need to revise and consider different courses to meet the new curriculums that are coming out in the 21st century. So before you this evening, we have 2 courses we'd like to add for next school year and 3 courses for the following school year. And I apologize, as always, the courses come to you before the review is complete. The review is quite extensive in 4 phases. And we will bring the review to you in March or April, but we don't like to wait, because if we don't bring the courses before you now, it puts the offerings 2 years out before the students can enjoy the potential to have new offerings for them to consider. So as I shared in an email, that doesn't require new FTEs. These 3 fine people sitting here will balance the courses should they run. Again, it's the student's choice if the course is run by what they select when the offerings come forward. So that's why we're here this evening.
Thank you. I'll be looking for a motion to approve the new courses, the 2013, 2014, and 2014-2015 show choir, folk music ensemble, introduction to piano, creating music, and exploring studio technologies.
Make the motion.
I have a question. Do they have to be as one group, or can we consider the next year's courses separate from the 14, 15 courses?
They're blended together intentionally, to Wendy's point, to make sure that those are sort of in the pipeline, if you will, before the reviews and those kinds of things. Would you add anything else?
I would just say we often bring all the courses that are coming out together in one block, because it requires a great deal of planning and preparation. So the board, just like Dr. Zelmer brought last year, you had approved green technology for the following year, just so that we can prepare and move forward. So that's why they're together in a block. It's just common practice that we bring anything we're suggesting out of a review together.
I guess I'm uncomfortable with the introduction to piano, and I would expect there'll be much more information that you would bring to us in March that might influence my decision. So I'm wondering if it would be possible to, I'm not asking us to delay the approval for a year. I'm just suggesting that maybe we can wait till, obviously before the June budget's adopted, but maybe in April, come back and look at the last 3.
I think that's, to Wendy's point, we really aren't in a position to do that because there's too much planning that has to go into the process. There's been significant amount of planning already. That's why these are being brought to you tonight. So, we could give you updates on how that planning process is going, but we would highly, ask that the board approve them all at this time so that we can move forward with the planning and coordination of these within our music program.
And you said that these courses wouldn't add any additional FTEs. So that wouldn't be a budgetary issue. And they would only run if there was interest from students.
Right. And Mrs. Witkowski had questions of why we chose piano over other areas, and I'll speak and music teachers can join in. But what we discovered was there are many, many musical careers that don't require performing but require knowledge. And so when the high school group was looking at the courses, they decided what could we offer that allowed students to have some musical knowledge and understanding if they chose a career but wasn't necessarily major performance-based. And they landed on, from the surveys they got from students, that piano would be a good skill that could carry on into those careers and give them the necessary background with not a lot of major difficulty to learn it, and the transition they would need if they were going to apply. You have to have some working knowledge of music if you choose a musical career, but you don't necessarily have to be a full-blown musician. So that was why we chose that course. It met a need around potential career tracks for students.
And maybe I can add something too. In addition to that, we have been doing a lot of research and gathering data, and we have done several site visits. And 2 of the site visits that we did at Verona High School and Kettle Moraine both offered beginning keyboarding or beginning piano at their high school level. So that was something as comparables, and we're looking at who we want to compare ourselves with and what our students are going to compete with. And that was one thing that we thought would be a wonderful fit
Just as a point of order, there was a motion. I'd like to make a second, then we can continue discussion, if you don't mind.
Yes, we have,
I'll second Tim's motion.
well, we have a motion by Mr. Trailer.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you
Yeah.
made it, Tim.
Motion by Mr. Trailer, second by Mr. Nielsen. Now we have discussion. Any further discussion?
Well, my understanding is it's a one-semester class, correct? So it's introductory. Where do students go from there? I guess it's one semester. What happens after that? I mean, piano, people study years of the piano, so what does that one semester provide?
That's very true. One of the things that one semester piano can accomplish is a lot of our instrumental majors and vocal majors that may be looking at pursuing a performing career. A lot of times, their college curriculums are going to ask for a certain amount of piano to start. That can support those kids too. Also, for a lot of kids that are interested in audio engineering, music business, music production, simply having a chance to work with the instrument and having a chance to on some small level perform, even if that's not going to be their main focus to be a pianist, is enough to really help them to kind of get a good grasp of what the areas are.
So what I'm getting from you is like, if they wanted to go to exploring the studio technology or the creative music, that's a good base for that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
What would be a minimum number of students to sign up for the class to be considered, or to hold the class?
I'll let Judy speak to that. She works on
It's,
FTEs.
it's generally around 15 would be a minimum.
I also have a question about the show choir. From when I grew up many years ago, the show choir was extracurricular. You know, if you're the concert choir, you could be in the show choir if you audition, and then you did competitions. Is that what you plan on doing, is competitions?
I think eventually, I wouldn't say right off the bat.
Right. But that's
it's
the goal?
definitely something that, I think, right off the bat, it would be more just performance-based around the community and within the school.
Okay.
But then once they get into the swing of things and expanding with that program, I mean, show choir can be a huge program on its own. So just once it gets past that point where everybody's comfortable with that type of thing, well, that would be.
Because I know band, they do summer practice competitions, so that's why I just wondered how that fit in. Okay, thank you.
So then the piano class would be limited then? We would cap it at 15? What if there were hundreds of students that wanted to take piano?
It would be involved like our normal scheduling process. We only can accommodate X number of students in a math class or whatever it might be, so the amount that we have the ability to accommodate might dictate that we give preference to a senior group or a junior. Those are things Mike would work out in the scheduling process.
And we'd also give preference to career considerations, to exactly what they spoke to. If a student needed that to enhance their resume so they could compete and be considered for a program, they would get preference.
Well, I think these are great, especially with the prospect of our new Performing Arts Center being built.
Yeah,
So I think that's great, and we're gonna have more music space, so I'm very excited about it.
I was excited to see him too. I have a quick question for Mr. Hull. I know that currently you run the Kaylee Band at the high school, and are you planning, is the folk music ensemble kind of an extension of that, or how do those fit together?
That's exactly it. Yeah,
Okay.
It's kind of extensions, a little bit of a broadening of the focus. Right now, the Healy Band is focused strictly on Irish music. But the folk music ensemble is basically going to be kind of folk music from Europe, England, Scotland, Ireland. And it's going to be a performing ensemble. It's an opportunity for kids to study secondary music. It's an opportunity for kids to learn music by ear, which is absolutely essential for a lot of types of music making. They're outside of the realms of symphony or a concert band. There's so much music making that's done where kids are going to need to be able to bodies and to be able to work just our like music collaborative positions in that. But and giving them a chance to do that, I mean, that can be really life changing for kids pursuing music after school.
Thank you. And are all of the new courses, are you planning on running those during the regular school day, or?
We still got to work out some of the details.
Yeah.
That could be during the school day, could possibly be before school.
Okay. Thank you.
Will you need to purchase any more instruments?
We haven't gotten quite that far in the process yet, so that's next. That's why you don't have the review before you, but we'd have to consider that as part of the implementation.
Is there any more discussion?
Is there any way in the future that we can adjust our curriculum review schedule to sequence this request for new class approval to better fit with
It's
the boards?
difficult to do that because I need to take advantage of the summer because it's an extensive amount of work and it's difficult work to do after school hours. We do work, you know, in evenings, but after you've worked all day and then you're working from 3 until 7 on, it's deep, focused work. So we try to take advantage of summer when when they have the time to do it. And with music, it was very unique. We really worked hard in the summer because of their performance schedules during the year. It's difficult to get them all together. So I've tried to do that. It's just I have to take advantage of summer and then work evenings around the many other commitments people have. So I've tried to make it work. It just, we thought we could get here, but curriculum review work is quite complex now, and it just takes more time, and we want to do it justice. So that was our goal, to be here tonight with the review, and it just didn't work because of the complexity. So I'll continue to work towards that.
Well, I do appreciate the information you provided.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, can I have a roll call vote, please? Mrs. Bukowski?
Yes. Mrs. Klein?
Aye.
Mrs. Larson?
Aye.
Mrs. Schlueter?
Aye.
Mr. Trailer?
Aye.
Mrs. Evans?
Aye.
Mr. Nielsen?
Aye.
And I will say yes.
And the motion carries. Thank you. The next item is the board clerk's report.
I believe this is my opportunity to read for you the election
Yes.
notice. And is it required that I read the whole thing?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, notice of school board election, November 5th, 2012. Notice is hereby given that an election to be held in the school district of Franklin on Tuesday, April 2nd, 2013. The following offices are to be elected to succeed the present incumbents listed. The terms of the office for school board member is 3 years, beginning on Monday, April 22nd, 2013. School board member Melissa Klein, school board member Debbie Larson, and school board member Jeff Trailer. Notice is further given that a campaign registration statement and a declaration of candidacy must be filed no later than 5 p.m. on Tuesday, January 2nd, 2013, in the office of the school district clerk, 8255 West Forest Hill Avenue. Notice is further given that if a primary is necessary, the primary will be held on Tuesday, February 19, 2013.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report, architect's update.
I sent an update this morning. Right now is at sort of a lull period in terms of when the architects are doing a lot of design work and so on and so forth. As I'd indicated to you today, we did meet with city officials, planners, and the mayor to talk about all the involvement that goes into securing permits and so on and so forth. At our December board meeting, the construction people, the architects and the construction managers will be here to present the timeline, to give you some additional details of where we are at right now. And then probably around January, February is when it really starts getting rolling, where you'll probably get more information than you would like to get. But right now, it's just, now that it's passed, they have to go back, meeting with staff on different things in terms of design and all those specifics. And a lot of that preparation work has to be in place to go to the city for approval of the permit. So the actual architects and so on and so forth will be on December 12th, their report.
Okay, thank you.
I would just like to say that that's some real forward thinking to get the students involved. And we have such a strong tech ed program, and it's just a natural fit, and I never would have thought of that, but when I heard that tonight, I thought that's great.
I think kids
to the
will enjoy
extent you can, like you said, but.
All right, thank you. Item E, personnel and policy report. Mrs. Larson?
Thank you. The first policy up for review tonight is Policy 3810, Procedures for Securing Legal Counsel. Dr. Miller and I bring this forward for your approval to add some additional language to the administrative rule. We're not changing any of the wording in the board policy itself, but we would recommend the addition of the language that you see before you for the administrative rule. Thinking behind that is that we operate solely as a board. We do not operate in singular fashion. We operate together. And so adding the procedure number 4 as indicated would also keep that in mind, that we do operate together as a board and not a single person.
Do I hear a motion to approve policy 3810 with the recommended changes?
I would make that motion.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Larson, second by Mr. Trailer. Is there any discussion?
I have discussion in that. I don't know that this change is necessary. I don't know that it's, I mean, I come from a different place. I don't think it was a problem in the past. I don't think it's a problem now. And to put this type of limitation on seeking legal advice, whether it's the pro bono with the WASB or otherwise, I think we would be prudent in how we would go about contacting legal if it's necessary. I know this was brought up before. It was actually brought up in the context of having a trigger where if the board president needed to seek legal advice or counsel, then there would be a reasonable time set forth where then the rest of the board should be brought up to speed on it. But I guess I wasn't anticipating the way it was written in number 4. So personally, I would vote to not approve it as rewritten and just leave the policy as it is.
Is there any other discussion?
I think the intent, Tim, was maybe to just limit the financial obligation of the board based on the decision of a single board member. It doesn't preclude it doesn't preclude seeking legal advice unless, if it's immediate, if it's going to cause a problem to wait. But it does encourage the decision-making of the entire board wherever possible and limits our financial obligation.
This addition isn't something that's new. It's seen in similarity in many board policies. Elmbrook has it within their board policy. Sevastopol School Board, I don't know.
Sevastopol.
That's the one. It's in their board policy. It's in the board policy of the Neelsville School Board. It's in most board policies. And I would agree with Mrs. Klein. The intent is to limit the amount of spending that goes on and to keep the board apprised, because I would say again that we operate as a full board, not as just one board member. That's what the intent is.
I would disagree that it's in most board policies. This little paragraph you're putting in here?
Yes, not word for word, not verbatim, but it is indicated, it is noted in many board policies.
I don't see it in Elmbrook's policy.
Authorization for individual board members to access legal counsel shall be with prior approval of the board president or the majority vote of the board. That's in there.
This little paragraph isn't in there. First of all, the policy, most boards don't have administrative rules. Dr. Miller, what are the administrative rules?
The procedures basically that are followed, and procedures can change without board action.
But they're for the administration, they're not the policy. I mean, the policy is what the board, I mean, the administrative rules really have nothing to do with the policy.
The administrative rules are like the how to implement the policy.
It's how it's administered.
Mm-hmm. It's the outline, it's the structure for administering the policy.
I do have the Elmbrook School Board policy here. It also goes on to say that the board from time to time engage special counsel for specific legal matters with advance approval by a majority vote of board membership.
Well, you have Elmbrook, I have Elmbrook, I don't have that in the one I have. And I've got Shorewood, and I've got Muskego, and we can print out 400 different policies. I mean, this is our policy.
And that's true. It's true, Mrs. Evans. We could come, you and I can go back and forth on multiple policies from all over the country, I'm sure. I'm just simply looking for a way that we make sure that we operate together as a board and that no one person on our board is seeking legal advice and costing our taxpayers undue costs.
I don't think there's any pressing legal that can't wait the 2 weeks for the next meeting, or even have any board member can call a meeting. There's no reason that we have to be out of the loop for any, I can't think of any legal counsel that we need to be leave the board out of the loop. So if something's that urgent, we could have an emergency meeting. And we've had expulsions scheduled 2 days in advance. We've had expulsions, 2 weeks in advance. We can get a board meeting if there's something that pressing. So I think as we do, we need to be all in the loop. There's nothing that, otherwise we're not very transparent.
I guess my question would be then to Mrs. Evans, why would you not want to tell the full board? Or why would you be opposed to this? As board president, why would you be against limiting yourself to 2 hours of paid legal time and informing the rest of the board what's happening?
I don't think that's an appropriate question. First, it's not me. It's whoever is board president.
Right, but I'm just asking you as our sitting board president that question.
The issue is, there is a slight separation for a board president.
I agree.
First, the board president is responsible for different duties than other board members.
Agreed.
They have to defend on behalf of the school district all actions brought against the school district. Now, I know that is a whole board also, but there are certain things that come to a board president first.
I agree with you.
And also with even making motions to go into closed session, and I know this could be done with not paid legal counsel, that could be done through WASB. But, and let's say that on a weekend, something should happen with a superintendent, and this is not our superintendent here now, but hypothetically, something should happen with the superintendent and it came to the board president, you couldn't get the whole board together, and you had to contact an attorney, and to limit 2 hours, which would be on a phone conversation. I mean, to limit the money is just not appropriate, and to put it in an administrative rule, and then even where it is, others may seek and receive legal counsel through the following procedure. That's for others. It's not for the board president. It doesn't belong there. I mean, you're talking policy, and then you're talking administrative rule. It just doesn't belong there.
So would you feel more comfortable if we added that to the policy?
I just don't think it's appropriate.
And I would ask, why is it not appropriate? Why do you think that limiting any board president's amount of time with paid legal is inappropriate?
Well, I guess, is administration limited in seeking paid legal prior to board notification?
No.
Then why did we find it necessary that board president be limited?
Well, because you're a convened governing body who has to act procedurally and make decisions that would involve legal. For an administrator, we call legal counsel often, and about several issues. It could be negotiations, it could be personnel, it could be a variety of things. Those are not equating issues, because in most districts, well, in all districts, the administrations have cause and reason to contact legal counsel at will.
Well,
In
I
most
believe that
In most districts, the Board of Educations generally don't do that unless there's
reasons.
a policy, right.
Correct, and our policy says the school board president has that privilege to seek legal counsel if they, under those unusual circumstances. And I guess we don't feel the need to limit administration's use of legal service prior to our approval. I don't see why we would need to do the same thing for the school board president. I don't know what's magic about 2 hours. It just suggests that I don't think it serves any purpose. If the issue is budgetary control, then we should probably exercise it equally across potential use of legal services, which would be administration and school board president. So
Well,
why would we?
I don't think we want to get into,
No.
Well,
It has to do with
correct,
us
so why
as
don't-
being a group.
right.
You're talking $800 for 2 hours.
I don't think the intent is that by not having this, the school board president never has to go to the board. I don't believe that is what we're saying by not having that there.
Could you repeat that again? I didn't hear you.
I said, the fact that we don't have this in here does not mean that we don't expect the school board president to inform us. We do expect them to inform us. We don't, I mean, that's a given.
And respect that person to be responsible with their duties, you know, not to just pick up the phone whenever. I mean, I think it's a pretty weighty decision, and so.
Has there been anything in the past, aside from this year, that paid legal counsel has been sought?
By the board
By the
president?
board?
By the board president?
No.
No, not that I'm aware of.
The last time this policy was revisited was in 1999, is that correct?
I don't think that, because it was revisited in 1999, would indicate whether or not any board president had ever secured legal counsel. I think that.
Right, no.
No, I was just making the point that I didn't think it was a problem then, and I truly don't think it's a problem now. That's my
Right.
position.
I also would ask, looking at the policy versus the administrative rule, it says that the invoices for payment shall be approved by the district administrator or designee and shall be acted upon by the Board of Education as part of the treasurer's report at duly posted Board of Education meeting. Do we do that?
I think we're getting off task when you talk about those kinds of things.
This is the policy.
But
I'm
we're
looking
talking
at.
about the legal counsel policy, not the bills for payment.
I'm sorry, I'm reading this from the legal policy.
Whereabouts, which number is that?
It's the last sentence.
In number 4?
The actual policy.
The current policy.
You're at the rule. The policy is,
And what is the question about that statement?
I'm asking, are we doing that?
Yes.
We are approving the invoices for payment during the treasurer's report?
The treasurer's report broadly including the checks. It all used to be one piece. The report on the budget, the treasurer's report, and the checks for payment all used to be one. It was called the treasurer's report. So that's what it refers to. So Dr. Pats reviews them, they're paid and approved by the board. That's all it refers to.
And the approval would be in the check register?
Right.
Okay.
There isn't any legal question that you couldn't get answered in a 2-hour consultation with a lawyer without being able to call a meeting or let the rest of the board know. There's absolutely no 2-hour discussion that could come up with it, wouldn't be able to then include everybody else.
I have no basis for making that judgment.
Well, we have a motion by Mrs. Larson, second by Mr. Trailer. Is there any further discussion? We have a roll call, please. Ms. Witkowski?
Yes. Mrs. Klein?
Aye.
Mrs. Larson?
Aye.
Mrs. Schlueter?
No.
Mr. Trailer?
Aye.
Mrs. Evans?
No.
Mr. Nielsen?
No.
And I also vote no.
Motion fails. Thank you. Ms. Larson, the next policy?
The next policy is the substitute employee policy, which we are recommending that we eliminate because there is no statutory requirement that exists to have that policy. And I know we are trying to thin out our policy book. And the second point to us eliminating that policy would be that the district does not employ substitute teachers. We go through a company, for lack of a better word, to hire our substitute teachers.
Do we, oh, wait.
So it is our recommendation that we eliminate board policy 4710.
Do I hear a motion to eliminate policy 4710?
I would make that motion.
Second.
Motion by Ms.
I'm sorry, is it policy 4719?
10.
I have 4710.
4710, I'm looking at it, it says 4710. That is correct. The agenda says 4719 substitute, but in looking at the actual policy, so that is an error on our agenda.
But that's a clerical or typographical error that the policy can still be acted upon if it's reasonable for the board to accept that. It's just one of those things where a digit is incorrectly placed.
Also in the public content, the policy number is correct if you look down further to the agenda item details.
But,
and it is listed as 4710.
but the public in the audience doesn't have that, so we will concur that the actual policy is 4710, and our content does say 4710. So we're okay with that then? Okay. We have a motion by Mrs. Larson. It was a second by Mr. Traylor?
Yes.
To approve the elimination of policy substitute employees. Is there any discussion?
Yes, I would like to have, I think there's some value in some statements that would be important and for discussion and consideration, because, let me just, in reviewing the old information, I noticed that I found it interesting that the only reason that was acceptable for coding, for an employee to code was sick. So you could only be sick in order for according to administrative rules, for a substitute teacher to be used. Is that correct? At some point in time, that was true?
You know, when I looked at this policy, much of what's in the administrative rules is no longer a fit with the procedures. So,
right, I understand it's not up to date, but I want to understand that did we come from that point, that at some point in time, the only reason you could use substitute teachers was to cover
No, that would not be correct. Substitute teachers are used for personal leave, bereavement leave, and other purposes.
Right, I would understand that, but they
Right.
weren't used, I believe, for training or for committee meetings or
Well,
things.
they've been used for training and committee meetings as well for numerous years.
But my question would be, is that a change that has occurred, that,
Where are you reading that, Ms. Witkowski, in the administrative rules? I'm sorry, I'd like to just reference it personally myself.
Item 2?
Oh, ASAP, yeah. Perhaps when we revised this policy in 2007, it may have been used in that limited form because ASAP was new to the district and we were just beginning to use it at that time, so perhaps that's why. But ASAP is used for other reasons. The teacher themselves, however, can only use ASAP to put in a sick day. The school secretary or someone in the HR department has to put the absence in ASAP if it's not a sick day. So that's a procedural delineation, and now I understand your question regarding that. We've used subs for all those purposes, but only teachers can go into that system and put in a sick day. They can't put in a school business day. They can't put in a bereavement day. They can't put in a personal day. We have to do that administratively. So that's just a procedural thing. But there are a number of things that in here that aren't, that I would, that don't reflect some of the current practices. But those are the procedures there. The policy itself really just indicates that the board's going to delegate to the administration the responsibility for hiring subs. Well, the board delegates a lot of things to the administration for us to do on a regular basis, and I'm not quite sure we need policy that says the board will delegate that task to the administration. It's kind of like what you said before, it's a given, it's our responsibility.
Basic operational practice.
Yeah, so, that's why I didn't think we really needed a policy here.
And after I thought about that, though, I think, though, we do use, as I said, parents notice when teachers are not in the classroom. And I think there's the expectation that teachers will be in the classroom because kids form relationships with their teachers, particularly at the grade school level. And the expectation was they would be there unless you were sick or there was other family matters. The fact that we use them now, that we find it okay to poll teachers for curriculum development, training, and I'm not debating that it's bad things. I think it's important to say that in a policy. That is our policy, that's acceptable. Also, because we could provide directions to say that we don't want teachers out of the classroom. You can do those things during summer, as you indicated. Summer is a time that these things could occur. So as a policy, we could say, we don't want teachers out. We want that work to be done during the summer.
That's unrealistic in today's educational environment, and I think that the ability for us to use staff appropriately and to develop as a district and to conduct professional development is an operational issue that happens in every single building throughout the year, just about every day. And I think that should be left up to the administration to be able to say, we can do this. We just talked about subs the other day at one of our meetings, and so we have a handle on this, but I see no need to differentiate anything other than to say if we have the need to put a teacher in a training session and we hire a substitute for it, that's appropriate because that's enhancing the education of our school district. Everybody in the world does that. There's not a district who doesn't. And I think that's part of the responsibility of all the administrators. Judy monitors it with her reports. The building principals, Wendy is, probably has a lot of involvement in that in terms of who it is and how often. But that's just an operational issue that I don't think is worthy of a policy at all.
Well, DPI just had a conference during the week, and we sent many teachers there during the week. And there was a couple of hundred there from around the state, so how would that fit into this? Those were all hundreds of substitute teachers working that weekend, or that week. So not during the summer.
It's taking advantage of whatever time and resource you have to get the job done. Basically, that's what it is.
I think what I hear you, I'm sorry.
That's okay, you can continue.
That you want to convey to parents, the uses of subs in our school district. And I think we have other ways of doing that, with our parents, informing them of how substitutes are used. And I would say most know, that there are days that teachers are out for professional development. I don't think we'd have to really tell them that, but we certainly could. They're out because they're ill. They're out because they're on a leave, bereavement, like I said, or because there's training that they're involved in. So oftentimes the teachers tell the children themselves where they're going to be. So, but I think that's what you're suggesting, that, somehow you want that conveyed.
Correct. I mean, I want to know that.
Yeah.
And who is the sub that's there teaching my child? How do I know that? What their qualifications are?
Well, first of all, we wouldn't have subs in our district that weren't qualified to be teachers. And part of our process is through the sub process that we use now is we don't let the ineffective ones, if you will, even get on our list. So I think our public fully understands that whoever's standing in front of their kids every day is a qualified teacher and able to do the job that the normal sub would do, and we don't abuse it.
Mrs. Schlueter?
The teachers on call, that is for teachers only, correct? Is it for educational
Actually,
assistants?
they're helping us with our educational assistants as well.
And office, secretary, custodial, food
Not
service?
custodians and food service.
Okay.
Those are smaller employee groups, and they have a kind of a small pool of regular subs that they rely on because of the training involved in that work.
And then the bus drivers, that's the bus company, correct? We don't-
Yeah, we contract for our bus company.
Right, so they take care of that, okay.
So how do you plan on communicating any of that information? We just talked about, how do you plan on communicating? I mean, if I'm a parent wondering about that, where would I go for information?
Well, I don't think we intentionally plan to do that because we would be on, how would we do that other than to put something on our website that occasionally, we will be using staff and staff development, and your child is going to get a substitute teacher. I don't think that's reasonable for us or for our community. Our community knows full well that staff is absent, is not in there for various reasons, for whatever, but I think I've never had a public or a community member express any concern to me other than if they had a bad sub, which happens.
I know our building principals, if there's going to be a sub in there for a few days, we'll send something home with the children, a letter indicating that the teacher's going to be out for a few days and then this is the sub. And we try really hard to use the same sub, but day to day, we would not convey, information home about a day-to-day sub. So,
As a parent of a elementary school child, I will know days before. My daughter, I don't think I've never known that she's not had a substitute at least a day before, because the teachers have told my daughter, just so you know, so-and-so is coming, you need to be on your best behavior. They prepare the students, so I think the communication is actually excellent.
I think at the
compared to what it
elementary level,
was.
that's very true, and part of that, though, is making sure that the parents, when kids come, if there's somebody new, kids, especially little ones, if there's not their regular teacher there, there's anxiety probably in some degree, and at the elementary, I think we really do a good job, to your point. When you get middle, high school, I think those kids are thankful to have subs. The old sub-activity.
I think it's unreasonable to think of informing people, parents, when we have subs in our buildings. We are all adults and we all know people get sick, and so we have to have substitute teachers there. School doesn't close because a teacher is sick, so I think thinking that we have to inform every parent when we have a sub in our building is it's an unreasonable task.
I think 30, 40 years ago, when you had a sub, they turned a movie on. and that's what you had, a movie, but now they have lesson plans, right? I mean, they follow a lesson plan.
Absolutely. You've got to be a qualified person to walk into any of our classrooms nowadays. And we get some gems occasionally, but then we take them off the list. And that would be our biggest concern as far as our public, which really doesn't go to the public, it goes to the child, making sure that that child has a good teacher in front of them every day. And I think we do a good job at that, I think.
Yeah, with more and more teachers using smart boards, all their lessons are on the smart board, so you'd have to know what you're doing. You get to walk in the door just to use that equipment and follow along the day.
The teachers are very strategic about wanting certain people in their building. If it's extended leave, there's extensive interview processes, and if there's someone who has to be out more often than the norm to complete some type of a project, you will see a reoccurring sub in there that has a skill set, because the teachers know the bottom line is the kids have to learn, and they want to ensure that the learning continues while they're not there. So it's never taken lightly. It's quite seriously dealt with, especially from the teacher perspective, because they care very much about the kids they're teaching.
Well, I really didn't expect them to, inform of sick days. I'm just thinking, if, we're implementing new curriculum and we're expecting extensive subs to implement that, might be communicated. And I don't want to take these things lightly. I mean, obviously there was a reason for a policy before, and I want to make sure that we understand why it may have been there and what's changed and why we don't need it anymore.
My guess is what's changed is we have teacher on call now. That's, in my opinion, that would be like the biggest change and kind of the biggest control.
I'm not sure in 1995 why a policy was written. There was probably a reason. And then in 02 and 07, probably the administrative rules were changed and that had to be updated. I know in 07, I certainly was involved in that change in the rules. So I don't know in 95 why that particular board decided they wanted to have a policy on this.
Were there more issues relative to union negotiations, perhaps?
There was a relationship to the contract and substitute teachers, so that's very insightful. As a matter of fact, years ago, if you subbed for 15 days in a classroom, you were offered a contract in this district.
But that was in terms of a contractual agreement. There wasn't that necessarily the agreement where we had an agreement where if we had people out for subs or staff development, that it was going to be handled one way or another. It was,
Well, in this policy in particular, it talks, I think it talks about you would hire a person in the bargaining unit before you'd hire someone else. So
Yeah.
you're correct.
that's why
I think
it was
that's maybe
probably-
why this policy was written
that
the
wasn't
way it
really
was.
too much of a sub issue. It was an employee issue,
Right.
making sure that our own employees had a chance to.
So maybe that's the background. Unfortunately, we don't know. But and then I think the other revisions were just procedural updates. I do feel that we have a really good system in place right now, but it's one that I'm monitoring very carefully, something I take very seriously as part of my job.
And I just want to complete, I mean, we know that the best way to get kids to learn, though, is, I think the research has shown, is the teacher in front of the kids, and that's why
I agree.
it's important that we are consistent in getting, that teacher in front of the classroom. So,
Any further discussion? Hearing none, we have a motion by Mrs. Larson, second by Mr. Trailer, to approve the elimination of policy 4710, substitute employees. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is item F, Treasurer's Report. Mrs. Klein.
Okay. I'm going to read you the normal treasurer's report in a minute, but before I do that, Jim and I talked earlier in the week, and we'd like to, on a regular basis, give you guys kind of an update on how where we are with the referendum process, the funding for that, and so today we just have a little bit of information on maybe how that's kind of going to work, and then at our next meeting, we'll have a little bit more detailed information for you. Jim, I'm going to pass it off to you because you're the expert on this. I'm just learning about it myself, so.
Okay. Well, as Dr. Pats mentioned, we are just getting started, and there are a lot of unknowns at this point. But we do know that we have a lot of work ahead of us, and we want to get our money to do that at the cheapest rates possible. So one of the things that we will be doing is a borrowing before the end of the calendar year. So in December, we'll come back to you with a borrowing recommendation so that we can get notes going, which will lower our interest rates a little bit. We're not doing any other borrowing this year, which makes that borrowing bank qualified, is the term for it. Banks can bid on that, and it drives the prices down, so we're paying less in interest in paying that back. We're on a tight timeline here, so we'll be working with bond anticipation notes to begin with. It will be notes, short-term notes that we take out, probably that will last through next April or May, most likely, and then we will pay those back and borrow long-term with bonds. But we'll also be able to do that at a lower rate because we borrowed early in this calendar year. All of these rules run calendar year. So I wanted to let you know that that's what we were working on. I've been preparing all the financial statements and giving the financial information for that. And we're trying to get this going so that we can have all this prepared and ready for you for the meeting on the 12th. Most likely be about $10 million as far as an initial borrowing. There's all kinds of rules and time limits on spending the money and so forth, but we're safe borrowing that amount at this point because we have an awful lot of work coming up. And in total we're at $33 million worth of work that we'd be doing.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim. Okay, so on to the balances. General fund balance, $7,098,102. Debt service fund balance, $1,788,585. And prior to December 12th, we anticipate cash requirements in the amount of $2.5 million for the November 30th payroll and accounts payable.
Thank you. Is there any board member in need of a recess before the board meeting debriefing? All right. Next item then is Board meeting debriefing.
Well done.
Thanks for asking.
Yes. Would anyone like to comment on the meeting?
I thought that the music department did a very nice job with their report, and I know sometimes it's hard when we don't have all of the information to make a decision, but I think that I felt like we had enough to make the decision we were asked to make tonight, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the full report in the spring. I think that when we are, as a board, when we're communicating to staff members, we just need to be obviously respectful, and I worry that, you know, we're very intimidating to come before, and that, you know, we just need to be careful of our tones, and I don't want them to feel like they're being interrogated or sitting in here with a light shining on them or anything. And I don't know that they felt that way today, but that's just an observation that I've made over time. So I just want us to all be mindful of that.
I just wanted to comment on the construction of the Little League project. Brian's done a great job as far as getting this together, and there was a lot of people here, and that just for everybody to show up is a really good report. So I really appreciate all that. So would you pass that on?
Very impressed, very impressed with everything.
You know, and Mike will tell you, he's so excited. He's doing stuff before he's one of those shoot aim, ready aimed guys, and excited and a good person to have in that department, because those kids get excited about what they do. And
We were kidding around the day after the referendum passed, and we thought Brian would be over there breaking ground with the shovel the next morning.
I would also say Brian's very conscious and is making a lot of effort to try to get more females in that program.
I liked that she
And I
was there.
think, all it's going to take is a hook to get one or two of them in there, and that kind of thing, and pretty soon it's going to roll, because it's that stereotype right now, I'm a woman, I can't be nailing something, or only a man can use a shovel, or, however you want to look at it.
There was a nice article in one of the local newspapers about Nikki in this. Maybe some of you saw it. I think it was right near the beginning of the school year or so.
Good stuff.
Part of what they didn't say is how much the guys learn from working with a girl in that capacity too. They're not used to being around that, and so it's it's a learning experience for them too. Say, hey, this can work, and it's everybody's the same in a way. So
I liked the way that Mr. Ken Skoronsky was here, and he made mention that it's great to work with the school district, so that's a real positive right there. And I thought it was also nice that the gentleman from Lowe's was here, and then the building inspector was here, so I thought that was just a great thing to see. So I'm really proud of our district, what we're doing and what we're doing.
I think what I like the best is is it DeBellick?
Yeah.
Is that how you say it? Just want to make sure that I said it right. That he said that he learned from the kids too. And I think needs to be out there, that just the kids don't learn, the teachers learn, staff learns, so I think that was an
Keeps you
excellent
humble.
thing to say.
Yep, absolutely. And Debbie, I agree with you totally. When I heard him make that comment, which is something that we've been looking to try and continue to reach out, and if there's a wall, break it down or whatever. I'm not suggesting there is, but that's good. It's a good first step, and that's good positive feedback that'll go back to, to his board. And
How long has Brian been with this?
This is his second year.
It's only his second year.
I
Good
think,
choice.
just an editorial comment, I think part of that whole process of getting more females in there is going to change just by societal norms changing. People are finding out that there are jobs out there, and a lot of jobs that pay very, very well, and even a woman who may not have an interest in that is going to figure out, I can be a construction manager. I can yell at people, and learn things. But I mean that in all seriousness, is that I think, because we have this mentality, and I've had it for years, that unless you go to a 4-year school, that doesn't even wash anymore at all. There are certainly those that fit that bill, depending on what they're going to do, but the hands-on pieces, every one of them, I think, mentioned it's nice to get out of the classroom and do something hands-on.
I like the way the guys talked about yelling at each other. Well, her first comment, she stood right up. Obviously, they never got up off the chairs, and
Yeah.
she said it's about building relationships, which is,
Really.
it's all women, but relationships, they yell at each other, so it's clear. Different
Careful now.
approaches to the same.
careful now.
And then Keelan will be honored at a common council meeting too, so this will all be brought up there unless it already was. I haven't seen it on the agenda yet, so.
I remember Kellen from when he was a little Cub Scout at Southwood Glen back in the day,
really?
so, yeah, he's grown up nicely.
Well, I just want to say, I do appreciate the email responses. I know I ask a lot of questions, but I do appreciate the information that was provided, and I don't mean to, cause trouble. I just like to understand when I make decisions, so I hope you appreciate that.
I agree with what you said, Melissa, and I think that's kind of inherent with our position. You try and be as light as you want, but it's one of these things when they come in, and oh my goodness, I'm in front of the board, even though it doesn't need to be that way, it's just one of those things. So, but I agree with what you're saying, let's keep that in the back of your mind.
I mean,
You know?
obviously, we need to get all the information that we
Right.
need to make a good decision, but I think, the way we ask questions and things like that, I think, we can just be mindful, and that'll help us all.
And I mentioned to the board, and I'm sure we'll have them by our next board meeting, or whenever we acknowledge anybody next, is we got new certificates, they're foil, and they're all pretty fancy with frames and everything, so, when people walk in here, it's nice to have them walk out with something too, because that might ease their, or maybe rise their level of appreciation or sensitivity.
Good idea. Anything else? I just had one thing, that the video that you showed at the very beginning of the dugout project, do you think we could make that available on the front page of the website? Because I think that would be a really cool thing for people to see.
Great, yeah.
I mean, obviously, it'll be part of this meeting, but 3 minutes is a lot more palatable for a larger audience than, 95 minutes
And
or
our kids-
whatever this meeting
And that's a
is.
promotional thing, our kids go to our website a lot, so.
Right.
I think we need to promote our district more than we are. So I think that would be a really good idea, Melissa.
I think our partners will see that, we're approachable and there's things to be done.
Well, and they did so much. They deserve some credit, too. They really do.
I think the best word is what you said, is proud. Proud to be part of the district when you see that, the collaboration, so
Yeah.
we need to show off a little.
Thank you. Next is future agenda items. We have December 12th, professional development update, December 12th, building and grounds annual report, December 12th, superintendent's self-evaluation, December 12th, Friends of Franklin Public School District, correct?
Friends of Franklin Public Schools.
Public schools, okay.
Yeah.
And then January 9th, superintendent administration evaluation recommendation. And do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mrs. Schluter. Is there a second?
Second?
Second by Mrs. Klein. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we are adjourned at 7:48. Thank you.